afternoon, everyone. My name is Duduzile Kopega. Welcome to Mathematical Literacy Grade 12. So in the slide here in front of you, I have my email address. Once again, I'll mention this. This is for when if you have any questions regarding mathematical literacy, you are most welcome to contact me. At the end of today's lesson, you would understand inflation, how it's determined, how the rate is calculated, and yeah, a few examples. So today and tomorrow, it will be inflation. And then next week, we'll be doing past papers covering the finance section in the exam. I mentioned we'll do inflation, right? It follows after the topic of we covered investments and loans, so now we are covering inflation. What is inflation? Oh, I forgot to mention. Again, if you have any question, if I'm moving too fast or too slow for you, you are welcome to tell me, put it in the chat box or raise your hand and speak up. Ne? I really prefer if we interact with each other, at least then I can understand where you are at as in regards to the topic, and then we'll be able to assist each other in that way. Inflation, what is inflation? We covered a bit of inflation yesterday, right? When we answered that question about the investments. So what is inflation? Inflation, you probably always hear people talking about inflation, right? It refers to the yearly rate at which the price of goods and services increases. So this is calculated annually, right? So you'd probably compare how much bread costs this year as opposed to how much it cost last year. So we compare the different years. How much bread costs in 2020 in comparison to how much it was priced in 2010. So that's how we'll measure the inflation rate. Inflation is given as a percentage. As soon as we speak of the rate, then we know when we talk of inflation rate, we talk of a percentage. So it means you need to still understand how to do the percentage calculations. I think you should have done percentage calculations in term 1 in your schools. If not, you probably have done it in the lower grades. If you do not remember how it's done, there's Get Hold. Remember I told you about Snaplify? There's also the book, the textbook, Siyavula textbook, Mathematical Literacy Grade 10. Yes, it's a grade 10 one. You can use that book to refresh your memory about some basics calculations that you might have forgotten. So you're welcome to go. It's free online. You can find that as well. Inflation, we make use of financial indicators to measure the rate of inflation. Statistics SA gather all the data needed to calculate the financial indicators. The most financial indices are, does anyone know the most common financial indicators? If you know them, let me know in the chat box there. If you know any financial indicator, let me know. Probably people who are doing economics would find this section easier than people who are not doing that. But nah, I'm not asking for currency. I'm asking for financial indicators. Okay, let's go here. There's the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. There's the CPIX, which is the Consumer Price Index excluding mortgage costs. The CPIF, which is Consumer Price Index Food. What is a Consumer Price Index? We mentioned that we make use of financial indicators to measure the rate of inflation, right? So these are used to measure the rate of inflation. So we need to understand these financial indicators. The Consumer Price Index is the first one. The CPI measures how the price of consumer goods and services changes from one year to the next. So whenever they speak of consumer price index, it means they're looking at the consumer goods and services and the price of those things and how it changes from year to year to year. It is calculated using a representative basket of the most common things that people buy and services that they need. What they mean by this is that by this basket, ne? So we will like, you know what they'll usually do? You'd say in like a year, let's take 2019, for example. They would take a database of all items that were bought by people ne, in that year. And then in this bucket, it would be the most common things. So out of the list of everything that people have bought in 2019, literally everything, every single thing that people have bought in that year, they will put that together. And then they will take the most common things. So let's say we are taking, calculating CPI, and we want to see probably in Gauteng, over 100 people bought bread. In Cape Town, over 1,000 people bought bread. You know, you'd see that there's a trend that bread seems to be the most common. It would be in that basket. And then for items that not a lot of people didn't buy, that are least common, then they wouldn't make it into that basket. So in the basket, it would only be the most common, meaning where they'd be comparing amongst the different regions or so, then they would put those items in the basket. There are CPI baskets for each province, as well as each primary urban area, secondary urban area, and rural area. So suppose we are taking the CPI basket for each province. We'd have a basket for Gauteng, basket for Western Cape, basket for Limpopo, basket for Northwest. Ne? You'd have those baskets, meaning of all the things that people have bought there. And then they would sift that basket to the most common things and they would compare it amongst all these different provinces. The same would apply with each primary urban area. They would find the most common things that the people in that area buy. So obviously, if something is bought only like let's say 10 times as opposed to something that was bought 100 times, the most common would be the one bought 100 times, right? That's how they would sift it through to understand how people in that area spend and what they spend their money towards to find the consumer price index. All unique items that appear in the provincial baskets appear in the national basket. As you've seen, like we mentioned, there'll be a basket for the rural area, for the second urban area, for the primary urban area. And then there'll be a basket, those ones that we've just mentioned, these areas, they will then inform what goes into the provincial basket. And then what is in the provincial basket informs what goes in the national basket. It's the hierarchy of that. I hope you understand that. Currently, there are 412 products and services in the new basket, up from 396. So currently, if you go check in the inflation, in the statistics essay, and you want to find the current consumer price index, there are 412 products nationally. Ne? Those are the ones that are informing the current inflation rate. For example, those items that are in that list now are bread, there's milk, sugar, clothes, cell phones, televisions, vehicles, houses, doctors' fees, school fees. These are the things that are currently in the basket. That means this is what most people are spending their money towards. This is calculated, the CPI is changed every 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, 4 years. Ne? So it means this is the most common for the past 4 years. Yeah? What this also means is that the CPI will continuously change each time it's calculated. Why? Because things people spend their money on change. For example, in probably 2000, the year 2000 or the year 99, né? There'd be items where items such as CDs, newspapers, there'd be magazines, there'd be floppy disks. I don't know if you guys would know floppy disks. In fact, those types of items, they were most common during that time, you know. So the CPI also informs of how things are currently changing in our society. Right now, the ones that are not very there, they don't really change much, are like food items such as bread, the most common food we buy, the basic food like bread, milk, sugar. Clothes also won't leave that basket because I mean it's a need that people can't really decide they don't need anymore. Cell phones now are becoming so popular in the CPI because now almost everyone has a cell phone, even young kids, né? Even primary school kids have cell phones now. So they now fall in the most common list of items, as well as televisions. People could go without televisions long time ago, but now televisions are there. It's like everyone is buying a TV. Everyone is now buying cars. You'd see how there's too much traffic on the roads. Everyone is buying cars for themselves. Like it's increasing. We are comparing it to times where people were okay with taking the bus. Oh, they couldn't afford buying cars for themselves. But now a lot more people are using and buying cars. And a lot more people are buying houses. There are also doctors' fees now. People are, you know, the school fees, etc., etc. If I compare again with the other times, why don't we see floppy disks anymore? Why don't we see CDs, DVDs, DVD player, all those sorts of things? People don't hardly use them anymore because you can now stream your movies or live stream your music. Ne? So those things are becoming outdated, and that's why you won't find them in the CPI anymore. So as much as it gives us the inflation rate, it also gives us an indication of how our times are changing and what items are moving out and others are moving in. The official inflation rate is calculated from the CPI. So from all these items in the basket, they would then compare their prices, and then that would inform the CPI. So they compare these to the previous years, the way we calculate the inflation rate. The cost of a basket of goods in January 2013 will be compared to the cost of that same basket from January 2012. So we have this basket, same things that I've just mentioned in the basket. They would compare them. This year, we would compare in January 2020, we would compare how much bread costs. And then we would compare it to how much bread cost last year, January 2019. We would compare how much a standard cell phone costs in January 2020 as opposed to how much it costs in January 2019. That's how they would note the difference in prices. And then the difference in price will inform the inflation rate. Then the cost of the basket of goods from January 2012 will be compared to the cost from January 2011. So you see, you always compare it to the consecutive year. Each month, the cost of the basket is calculated and compared with that month from the previous year. So you always need to make sure they compare January to January, February to February, so on and so forth. The average change over the 12 months is calculated and becomes our inflation rate. So they'll be comparing January, all the months, January 2019 compared with January 2020, February 2019 with February 2020, and so on and so on and so on. And then they'll take the average change for over those 12 months, over that year. And that would become the inflation rate. Then what is the consumer price index excluding mortgage costs? This is the same as the CPI, but does not include mortgage bond interest rates. So whilst the CPI would probably include the bond rates, remember we calculated those bond rates when we were doing loans, particularly, we spent a lot of time discussing the bond in loans. So this is what they're referring to. The CPI X excludes the mortgage bond interest rate. The South African Reserve Bank often makes use of the CPIX when making monetary policy decisions. Then, we've seen that the CPIX is more useful to the South African Reserve Bank. And then the Consumer Price Index. This index, the Consumer Price Index food, which is the CPIF, this index only includes food items in the basket. So you are noting the difference. The first one we did, it notes all the goods and services. And then the CPIX includes everything in the CPI except mortgage bonds, interest rates. Then this one includes only food items, nothing else. This index only includes food items in the basket. So the CPIF is an indication of how the cost of food has increased or decreased over time. So when we want to find out only about the inflation with regards to food, we would have to follow up on the CPIF. Now, how do we calculate the price index? It is same as calculating a percentage increase or decrease, where the formula is new price minus old price over old price multiplied by 100. So, and that is equals to rate at which items have increased in price. Example, a particular chocolate costs, I need you guys to provide me an answer for this. So prepare your answers, do your calculations and prepare your answer in the chat box. Example, a particular chocolate costs R6.50 in 2012, but costs R7.10 in 2013. Can you give me the CPI for that, for this chocolate? If the price in 2012 was R6.50, and then the price in 2013 is R7.10, give me the CPI, the price index one. Give me the price index, or give me the rate at which this item has increased in price. Guys, are you calculating? Okay. Okay, Lisedi, thank you. Let's see how Lisedi found her answer. Okay, so you see what we did? The new price is R7.10 minus the old price, which is R6.50, divided by old price, which is R6.50, multiplied by 100. And then our answer is 9.23 or 9.2, whatever, 9.23%. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. I'm not sure how you said you calculated the answer. I wanna, or maybe you didn't multiply with the 100 you said. Oh, okay, I understand. You forgot the decimal. All right. So that's how you calculate it. Remember this formula, you will use it. It's finally said, I'm glad we noticed the mistake. We'll be able to fix it now. So look at this graph here. It's a graph. We're looking at the changes in bread prices over time. This is taken from the Via Africa Mathematical Literacy textbook, no? As I've always been mentioning. I put the references in the last slide where I'm telling you about the helpful links. So January 2006, bread costs R4.45. January 2007, it cost R4.62. In Jan 2008, it cost R5.25. 2009, R7.18. 2010, R7.40. 2011, R8.31. And then in 2012, it went up to R8.15. So you see, the bread price has been increasing. And then it only decreased in 2012, where it was coming from R8.31 to R8.15. You understand this graph, right? It is showing changes in price. A price increase is reflected by a rise in the graph. I think this, I don't even need to explain it to you. You can see if it's increasing, as you can see with your graph, you study your graph, you see the X's there. Here we're talking about the months, the different years, the different months over the different years. And then on the y-axis, we've got the prices, and it's increasing. So it means if there's a rise in your graph, there's a price increase. The steeper the slope, the higher the price increase. Remember when we spoke about the steepness of the graph? Remember when we did that? Yes, the steeper it is, the higher the price increase. A price decrease is reflected by a drop in the graph. So if it decreases, it's a drop in the graph. If prices remain the same, the graph would be a horizontal line. But right now here, we have what? It's an increase here, it's increasing slowly, but here it's a bit steeper. This increase was a bit steeper. And then this one was also quite steep, from 5 rands to 7 rand. It was very steep. Then here it was increasing, but at a slower rate. Then it was also a bit steep here. And then here it's almost horizontal. It decreased, yes, there's a decrease, but it's not that much or that big of a decrease. That you understand. Now, this graph indicates the bread price inflation. So it's based on those increases we just did. But now this is a graph indicating an inflation rate as opposed to the one with changes in price or the change in price. Ne? This one here, we are calculating the inflation rate. Use the formula I showed you. You would see here that the inflation from Jan 2006 to 2007, it was 3.8%. But from 2007 to 2008, it was 13.6%. That is a big increase, if you can notice. Then Jan 2008 to 2009, it was even steeper because it moved from 13.6% to 36.8%. Then January 2009 to January 2010, it was a very steep decrease. It means that it decreased at a very quicker rate. It was decreasing here. It moved from 36.8% to 3.1%. And then from this one in Jan 2010 to Jan 2011, it increased again to 12.3% inflation rate. Then Jan 2011 to Jan 2012, it decreased once again. You notice the difference, right? I hope you can notice. In the first graph, we did the price increases. Now we are doing an inflation rate. Price, we have how to do the calculation of inflation. The price in January 2006 was 4 rands 45 cents. Yeah? Price in January 2007 was 4 rand 62 cents. The increase in price from January 2006 to January 2007, it was 0.17. How did I find that answer? How did I find that? It is this old price, it is the new price minus old price. So it's 4 rand 62 minus 4 rand 45. That's how we calculated that. So you incorporate the formula slowly. The inflation from January 2006 to January 2007 would be 0.17 over 4.45 multiplied by 100. You remember the formula. It was what? It is new price minus old price over old price multiplied by 100. This 0.17 comes from subtracting the old price from this new price, like I just explained. It's 4.62 minus the 4.45. Then you get 0.17 over the old price, which is 4.45. Multiplied by 100, it is equals to 3.8%. You see, that is what informed this 3.8%. I hope you are following. You're following, right? You can see what we are doing here. That is how this one was calculated. Same way, to find the inflation for January 2007 to January 2008. Let's go back to that graph. January 2007 to January 2008. What would you do? It's the new price of 5 rand 25. You can quickly do the calculation, please. Calculate the inflation rate for January 2007 to January 2008. And then give me the answer in the chat box. 5 rand 25 for Jan 28, 2008 minus 4 rand 62 for January 2007 divided by the old price, which is the 4 rand 62. Multiply that by 100. That would be equals to, did anyone do the calculation? 5 rand 25 minus 4 rand 62 divided by 4 rand 62 multiplied by 100. Yeah, thank you guys. It's 13.63. Thank you so much for doing the calculation. 13.63%. So you can see how that calculation was done, right? Let's go to the inflation graph. You see, that's the 13.6 that we just calculated. This one for January 2007 to January 2008. So you understand, you see how all these inflation rates were calculated. The same formula. For January 2008 to 2009, you would use the prices of the bread in those 2 years to calculate that inflation rate. So this is how it was calculated. You understand, right? So that's how you will do it. And that is informing this increase and the decreases and so on and so forth. What do we notice about these two? Now we are comparing. Although the graph is decreasing from 36.8%, which we are talking about the year 2008 to 2009, it does not correlate to a decrease in the price of bread. We are talking about 2008 to 2009. Let's look at 2008 to 2009 here. This part, 2008 to 2009, 36.8%. 2008 to 2009, it's 36.8%. The inflation rate, 36.8%. That was the inflation rate from January 2008 to 2009. This one, 2008 to 2009. You see it increased by that much. We have moved from 13.63 to 36.8%. The inflation rate increased from 13.63 to 36.8. It does not correlate to a decrease in the price. Okay, wait, let's talk about this. This 36.8, which is the 2008 to 2009, ne? And then the 3.1 here, January 2009 to 2010. You can see that from 2008 to 2009, and then it moved to 2009 to 2010. There was a decrease here between these 2 years. There's a huge decrease, right? It moved from 36.8% to 3.1%. Let's go to the graph of prices to compare exactly how much the bread was costing between 2009 and 2010. 3.1%. It went to 3.1% between these 2 years, 3.1%. But between these 2 years, it was 36.8. Yeah? But let's look at January 2009 to January 2010. Do you see that the price of the bread increased? Actually, it increased in January 2009, it was 7 rands 18 cents. And then in Jan 2010, it was 7 rand 40 cents. Do you notice that difference? The price of the bread for those 2 years, it increased. But the inflation rate decreased. Can you follow that? Do you understand? Is it clear for you guys? In January 2009, the price was 7 rand 18 cents. And then in January 2010, it went to 7 rand 40 cents. But when we calculate the inflation rate, we find the inflation rate to be 3.1%. But the inflation rate for January 2008 and January 2009 was 36.8. So it means when we compare these two now, there was a very big decline or decrease in the inflation rate. Does anyone know why that is the case? Can someone please explain to me if you understand why? Why is the inflation rate decreasing even though the price increased? You are allowed, you can raise your hand if you feel it would be easier to explain. Does the silence mean you don't know the answer or what? So if you don't know, I'll just move on. Okay, thank you, Limondre. Okay, Dominic, the question is, in 2009 to 2010, would it be easier if I go to the inflation table? For January 2009 to January 2010, yeah? Look at the prices. Let's actually look from January 2008. Let me highlight this. this other year here. These 3 years, the 3 years that I have highlighted there. And let me erase this so that it doesn't confuse you. Okay. January 2008, price is R5.25, right? January 2009, the price is R7.18. And then January 2010, the price is R7.40. Those 3 years, you can see the prices. The price of bread has been increasing since 2008, 2009, 2010. We are just comparing these 3. Yeah? But the inflation rate between 2008 and 2009 is at 36.8%. 36.8%. And then the inflation rate between the 2009 and 2010 is at 3.1%. That means the inflation rate between January 2008 to 2009, and then the one from 2009 to 2010 has decreased. It has moved from 36.8 to 3.1, that inflation rate. Why do you think that's the case? That's the question. Why do you think there's a decrease in the inflation rate, even though there's an increase in the price? Yes, Limondra, I was trying to explain to Dominic the question. I got your answer. I want to engage with your answer just now. The difference, Limondra is saying the difference of the previous years is higher. So in 2009, 2010 and 2009, it is smaller than the previous 2 years, so it decreases. So that Limondra is saying again, the price difference is smaller. That's why the inflation rate is decreasing. And then Dominic is asking another important question. He's asking, doesn't inflation rate mean the increase of price of goods per year? We discussed this in the beginning. What is inflation rate? We discussed that, partner. That's a good question, Dominic, because whenever they tell us about inflation rate, it's always an increase. It's always spoken of as an increase. Ne? We hardly ever heard of a decrease. But no, inflation rate is, I'm trying to go back to the, oh, here. Okay, let me move quickly. Where is that slide? I'm trying to find that slide where I explained. Okay, I can't find that slide. Where was I? We are here. Can someone answer Dominic? He's asking, does an inflation rate mean an increase of price of goods? Okay, let me answer him. Right now, Dominic, we are talking about which inflation rate? The inflation rate of bread, particularly this bread. And it is informed by what? By the prices, the changes in prices, right? So yes, you are correct by saying inflation rate means the increase of price of goods per year. That is very true. This means there was an increase. Let's look at the graph again. 2006 to 2007, there's an increase. This graph has been increasing. Let's just stop until 2011. The prices have been increasing. They keep on increasing. The inflation rate, however, would increase or decrease, like Limondre's answer is saying here. If the rate of the increase was lower compared to the previous year, then there will be a decrease in the inflation rate. That we are looking at the difference, the price difference here. Because the price difference between 2009 and 2010 was so small, that resulted in a decrease in inflation rate. The price did increase from 2009 to 2010, but the inflation rate decreased because when we compare to the 2008 and 2009, the price increased at a much higher rate. It moved from 5.25 to 7.18 for 2008 and 2009. That is a large increase compared to an increase of from 7.18 to 7.40. Do you understand that, Dominic? The price has increased, but by how much did it increase? Let me show you this. Let's try and do this. Let's calculate the new price minus old price. 7.18 minus 5.25. Please provide me with the answers, guys. 5.25 for this one. I want us to compare the exact price increase. Now, let's not look at the inflation rate, actually. Then let's look at 7.40 minus the 7.18. 7.18. I need answers for these two. You'll see that this one is 2008 to 2009. This first one. For the second one, it's 0.22. And what's for the first one? Thanks, you said. I've got 3 minutes to go, guys. Let's quickly finish this calculation. R7.18 minus R5.25. It's R1. Thank you for fixing your mistake, Tapang. I was very worried now. Okay, thank you, Tapang. Thank you, Nisedi. You see now, this is where I'm at. The price from 2008 to 2009, it increased by R1.93. And then from 2009 to 2010, it only increased by 0.22. Now, if you note the difference here, it means there was a decrease in the increase. I hope you are really hearing me. In 2009 to 2010, there was a decrease in the increase. It means it increased only by a small number, as opposed to how much it increased by in 2008 and 2009. That's why in our graph, from here, this part, it is increasing inflation rate. But from that year, it would decrease because you can see that the price only increased by such a little number. Remember, we are busy comparing the different years. That is why there'd be increase and decreases involved, because we are comparing different years. If we were not comparing with anything else, then it would increase. If we were just jotting down the increase from 2009 to 2010, it would increase. But we are comparing with all the other years. That is why, in comparison to all the other years, particularly in comparison to 2008 and 2009, the increase of the price was lower than the increase that was experienced in 2008 and 2009. That is why they would say the inflation rate has decreased. I hope you guys understand. If there's any question, please feel free to ask now. We are on the last minute of the session. We'll finish up tomorrow with the rest of the session. But are you okay? Are you clear? Are you fine? Any question? Quickly ask. You see, as it's explaining here, The decreasing graph indicates that the rate of increase was much lower. It was from 36.8 to 3.1. The price still increased, but by a smaller percentage. Dominic and everyone else, you'll find the notes on www.login. Let me quickly go to that last slide. We'll finish up tomorrow, ne? But I wanna go to that last slide. This one, www.africateamkicks.co.za. And then you can also email me with that email address I provided you in the beginning if you need any more info about this, and I will assist you. I can explain this session further if that's what you need. But this is where you'll find the slides that we posted. Yes. And then you have the email address, right, Dominic? You are welcome to take it down. And then you can send me a communication if you still don't understand from the slides. But thank you very... Oh, Limondre, I'm sorry. Let me respond to you just now. After class, I'll send you that email. Sorry, Limondre. I remember now. I'll send it just now after class. All right. Thank you very much, guys. See you tomorrow.